Hello everyone, I'm K-Swope, and in this video we are going to be reviewing the third season of Dexter. If you have not seen my reviews of Dexter seasons 1 and 2, go check those out right now, because I will likely be referring back to them at some points. I'll also be spoiling seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, New Blood, and Original Sin. If you don't want any spoilers, I recommend watching my other reviews after you've watched the series yourself. Go check out the iCard for all of those. And I will be dropping a supercut of all my reviews put together into one massive video, plus a little extra material that are not going to be my individual ones. And I will be ranking the seasons as well in my supercut. But in the meantime, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we're going to go ahead and get into the review. I'm also going to say this once again. We'll be taking each individual plot point and giving it its own rating on a scale from 1 to 10. 10 being fantastic, 1 being absolute hot garbage. So, that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's start with Dexter's plot points. Why don't we? Dexter is dealing with a lot this season. For one, he accidentally takes an innocent life, which of course is something that weighs on him a lot, because it's like his target is not the one he ended up going stabby with that night, which is not great. But then somehow that makes him grow closer with a district attorney named Miguel Prada. He's going to be a very important character this season. Him and Miguel, they start up a bromance. Meanwhile, speaking of bromance, Dexter's romance with Rita starts to get complicated in a different way because Rita becomes pregnant. So basically what we do in this season is we see Dexter reacting to the fact that, oh crap, I'm going to be a father, what do I do? He eventually does the right thing and marries Rita, but he has his friend Miguel now. Miguel and his wife become best friends with Dexter and Rita, but Miguel's got a few demons of his own, which we'll talk about a little later on, but let's just put it like this. He eventually becomes the bad guy, okay? But generally, those are the three things that Dexter's kind of dealing with this season. It's a little dry compared to what he's been going through in the past. It's not really bad per se, it's just not as exciting as the previous two seasons, and so for that reason, I'm giving Dexter's plot points a 6 out of 10. Meanwhile, the police and Deb, they are going after some killer who's skinning people to some extent, which is, you know, pretty crazy, not good at all. And so Deb is investigating this Skinner guy. This eventually leads Deb to have to start working and cooperating with a new detective, Joey Quinn, who, another character I like quite a lot. I'll talk about him a little more in a later video, but in the meantime, Quinn, exciting character. We'll just say exciting for now. Again, a lot we can say about him. Deb does not like this Quinn guy, and I don't blame her because there's a lot of reasons not to like him. But he has a CI named Anton who Deb starts working with to help find the Skinner guy that they're looking for. Anton and Deb end up having a little love thing. Anton, by the way, is played by David Ramsey, not to be confused with Dave Ramsey, who is a.k.a. none other than the man, the myth, the legend, John Diggle from Arrow. Heck yeah, man. Anyway, so Diggle and Deb get into a relationship. That's funny, actually. Diggle and Deb, they get into a relationship. It is very dry, very boring, and I just don't get the chemistry between them at all. It feels really, really forced. This is, I think, probably the worst plot points we get for Deb in the entire series. So these get a 3 out of 10. The police, however, they're going after this Skinner guy, so there's a little more plots that kind of go on with that, some stuff that Deb's not entirely directly involved with. That's kind of interesting. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's definitely a little more better than what Deb's got going on. Police are going to be getting a 4 out of 10 this season. Then we have a new plot point that I'm going to give its little own thing. But Bautista, all right? Angel Bautista. I think most people like him in the show. I know I like Bautista a lot. But Bautista, he's got this very, very awkward romance thing going on. It's very strange. What happens is he goes to see let's call them Lady of the Night, if you will. He goes to see one only to find out that she is a cop in disguise trying to catch people red-handed. He almost gets in a lot of trouble. Then he, like, asks out that cop and they get into a relationship. And I'm like, this feels so weird. Like, you know what kind of guy he is if he's willing to pay somebody for those kind of services, and like it's kind of painful to watch, really. I have a lot more to say about this come season 4, because spoiler alert, season 4, this just vanishes and they reference it like once, which might be for the better, but I still hate when TV shows at all just kind of drop things like that. This plot point is also really bad. It also gets a 3 out of 10. Now the villain, mentioned him before, Miguel Prada. So it starts out really interesting because He finds out what Dexter does, okay? His stabby, stabby, chop, chop, dump, dump. And he's actually on board with it because he likes the code of Harry. He likes that he's only taken down bad guys who've escaped the law kind of thing. And him being district attorney kind of agrees with that, sort of, except for the fact that he doesn't. He convinces Dexter to let him go chop, chop, chop with him. And eventually that causes him to kind of go rogue and do his own thing, if you will, which results in some people who are innocent biting the dust, which is very, very unfortunate. So Dexter's like, yeah, we're going to have to put him down, which he does. But before he does, Miguel is able to get the Skinner guy the police are looking after and get the Skinner to go after Dexter, which is interesting. It's kind of boring. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't really know what else to say about it. It's okay. It's not great. The finale, it being on his wedding day and stuff, I think was an interesting point. So, yeah. They did all that stuff. It was meh. Miguel was interesting. I think it ended very boring, but the whole idea of how they built him up and then eventually, he turned on Dexter, that kind of thing, that was interesting. The Skinner, a boring villain, though, honestly. Generally, though, Miguel pulls his load pretty well. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Now, a few notes I just want to talk about this season before we give it a rating is this season is a little boring, honestly. When I was watching through it, I mentioned this in one of my earlier videos. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. But the first season, I started it. I couldn't stop. It was so good. Second season, I also couldn't stop. It kept going. This season, I started watching. I got a few episodes in, and I'm like, this has just really lost a lot of momentum at this point. So unfortunately, I felt that way about this season. Next season, though, it definitely gets that mojo back, and we'll talk about that in the next video, unless it's already out. In that case, you know where to go. I've said it a million times already this video. But other important things to notice, like I said before, Joey Quinn shows up, and he becomes a series regular from that point. I like him as a character a lot. A lot of things to say about him. A very flawed character, both in terms of how he's actually in the show and how he's written. But for some reason, his quirks are one of the things about him that I like so much. So yeah, I can't really explain it or rationalize it. I like him as a character, regardless of how strange that might feel or sound, because I can't really explain why, because he's not written the best. He's not a very likable character, but for some reason I like him. One of my favorite changes that's made this season that we see throughout the rest of the original series of Dexter is Harry, instead of seeing him in flashbacks, is now Ghost Harry, as a lot of people call him, where he just kind of shows up in Dexter's subconscious, sort of like as someone who's contrasting what he's thinking with, other ideas, like he's debating with himself in his head, contemplating things. Ghost Harry shows up and kind of speaks another point of view, which I think is quite interesting, and I get sick of shows that rely heavily on flashbacks, and so I'm really glad they moved away from that this season, and I'll take Ghost Harry over flashbacks any day. Now, another thing that's weird is Dexter breaks his code like 3 times this season. For one, as I mentioned, Miguel Prada's brother, he ends up not being a great guy, though. I don't think he killed anybody, though. I could be wrong. I don't recall him killing anybody, so I don't know, but broke the code on him. He also euthanizes Camilla, who, she's the file lady. She's been good friends with them for a while. She shows up in Original Sin as well. That was okay. It wasn't a great plot point, but he euthanizes her to put her out of her misery. I will say, though, that almost feels like one of the most human kills he does in the entire series, so that was at least interesting. I don't say it was necessarily a bad thing. One thing I will say, though, I really, really liked, is one of the guys in this season that he puts on his table is not a killer at all. He is a P. Diddy file. This P. Diddy file he finds was stalking his soon-to-be stepkids, right, Astor and Cody. And so he does what any responsible father should do and takes them out. Not on a date, obviously. Silly goose. No, which I think was fascinating, too, because the idea in that episode is the kind of things Dexter's dealing with is the idea of, what it's going to look like to step up to be a father to this kid who, for all he knows, might be a killer of some type. And then he kind of runs into this situation, and he's like, okay, what would a responsible father do? I know exactly what a responsible father would do. Now, to be fair, he goes a lot further than a lot of fathers in real life actually do. But he still does it, and not going to lie, I respect him for that, because those people with that kind of behavior, they deserve nothing less. You could even debate that they deserve a lot more, to be quite honest. Now, I'm kind of rambling on here. You don't want to hear about me. You want to hear about Dexter, right? But, so there's that for you. Very fascinating. Those are my notes for Season 3. Now, generally, Season 3, not the best season. Not the worst season either. I give Season 3 a 6.5 out of 10 on my ranking. So that's Season 3 for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. Season 4 will be coming up, and oh boy, do I have a lot to say about that. So go check out the iCard, as you know, if it's there already. If not, check it out anyways. You can go back and watch Seasons 1 and 2. And like I said, I'm going to be coming with a super cut when I'm done with everything. We're going to put every single review that I've done into one long video. Then we're also going to rank them as well and put a few more bits of detail, things I haven't quite said in these smaller videos in there. So it gives you a few more reasons to watch. Hopefully you guys are ready and excited for that. I know I sure am. But in the meantime, I'm K-Swope. Thank you guys all for tuning in, and I will see you in the review of Dexter Season 4.